Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a wife, mom of two, VBAC mama, and doula. Here we integrate holistic mindfulness and evidence-based practices to support you on your unique motherhood journey. Whether you're trying to conceive, pregnant, newly postpartum, or supporting mamas in this stage of life, you'll feel empowered and informed as you embrace what lies ahead. Join us every episode to learn from professionals, special guests, and moms just like you, ensuring that you know what you need to know and discover things that you didn't know before. I believe in you. Let's doula this and let's navigate the transition of entering motherhood together. Hey mamas, I am so glad you're here, and I am so glad that you chose to listen to this episode because this is seriously one of my favorite topics and things to be talking about, and really going into those fears that are associated with childbirth and switching it and changing it to a more positive, empowering feeling. We have a special guest, Suzzie, on this episode. She is also a doula and childbirth educator, and she really just shares about her experience and all of the work that she's been doing and how we can really get the support that we deserve and the support that we're worthy of, and really learn how to be more educated on birth so that those fears don't seem as big and aren't as overwhelming. And so really mentally and emotionally preparing for labor is super important. So I know that you're going to love this episode. You're going to gain so much insight and really get that next step to start moving forward in feeling empowered for your upcoming birth. Hello, and welcome to Entering Motherhood. I'm so excited to have this conversation today. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for the listeners?
Hi, my name is Suzzie Vehrs. I'm a doula and childbirth educator, and I'm the mom to two girls who are out of the baby stages, unfortunately, but into a brand new and fun stage at 5 and 9.
Nice. So let's backtrack then to 9, maybe 10 years ago when you were first entering motherhood yourself, and what that experience was kind of like, and what was kind of like going on in your life at that time.
Yeah, motherhood was a tough transition for me, which, I think is kind of normal because it's a big transition no matter how you do it. I worked in finance and I was a very boss babe girl, like very driven, very motivated. And I didn't have a lot of support around birth, and it scared me a lot. I kind of dipped my toe into learning about hypnobirthing because my child's father's family was all about everything natural. And so it was kind of expected that I would do natural births, but I also didn't have any support. It was a terrifying thought to me. And with Zoe, her labor is a very long story, but it was like when I look back at the feelings I remember, it was just I was scared, I was afraid, I felt very alone. I didn't know how to ask for the help I needed. And ultimately, her birth did escalate into an emergency C-section. And I just was like, okay, I'm done with this birth thing. Like, have a great kid. Let's move on. It wasn't until I had joined a mom's group after I became really good friends with a student midwife, where the idea that, okay, birth can be a lot of things. It can be hard, and it can simultaneously be a moment of joy and accomplishment and sovereignty and choice, and something that you're like actively a participant in. But those things kind of started to resonate with me as something that changing from something people talked about to something that I could like embody those things. And so when I had my second daughter, Hazel, I had a completely natural birth, but this time more because I wanted to and I wasn't afraid of the process. And, if I had changed my plans, I wouldn't have been stressed or worried or felt any sense of shame or guilt or let down or anything like that. And I just had the best experience. My midwife and doula were so inspiring in helping me feel confident and ready and to really move from that place of feeling like birth is something scary and something could happen to me to birth is actually quite safe and something I have a lot of say over. And it became a very spiritual and joyful time in my life. So after Hazel was born, I did my doula certification when she was about a year, and I've served about 200 families. And I just love it more and more every birth.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think, like you and I share a very similar story of our first being a cesarean. And so then like ultimately having that VBAC for our second. And for mine, it was, yeah, completely unplanned. I did not intend to have a cesarean. I did not think that that was going to be the plan. And after hours and hours of labor and not progressing and things of that sorts, then we determined that a cesarean would be the route that we went. And then going from that to a completely unmedicated VBAC and having that like huge range of what birth can be like, it really changed and solidified my perspective that it can be really empowering and it can be like a transformational experience. But like you said, it's something like you have to want that. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think it's something that like you just, go into and have it happen. It's one of those things like, I want to have this transformational experience. I want to feel empowered. I want to be more like unmedicated and all of these things. I think when we have that vision, then it really transcends into actually being that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Can I
yeah.
ask you something about your surgical birth?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like really emphasize with the women that I work with is the importance of like joint decision making and informed consent and good communication through the process. When you think about your first birth, the one that kind of escalated, do you think you had those types of things as part of that experience?
Yes, I do because it really was talked about. It wasn't rushed. It was sort of, this is what we see happening. This
Mhm.
is, what we've seen can occur at this point. And even, like I ran a fever. I had other things. My water
Oh my
had been broken
goodness.
for more than 24 hours. So like even knowing what I know
Oh, we're
now
very
as
similar
like,
in starting with
yeah,
waters breaking and having that long
yeah,
labor. Yeah.
yeah. And it was just like knowing even what I know now, I think there isn't too much that I would have changed rather than just maybe waiting longer to see if I would have been able to, progress further. But she was asynclitic, she was sunny side up. Like there was a
Oh
lot of factors.
no.
Like
Yeah.
I just had all of it going on and I was terrified. So I think in the moment, there really wasn't too much that could be done. But in how I guide moms now, how I really like prepare people and talk about it, there are things that could have been done beforehand to prevent all of that occurring.
Yeah. That's
So,
very much how I feel about mine.
yeah.
What types of things would you like if you're like, oh, I wish I could have done this earlier? What things would have you
Mhm.
like added into your birth story?
I think more fear clearing, more really kind of like going through like what is going to happen. I was under the assumption that I was just going to walk in and have a baby. I really like I
Mhm.
took a birth education course. We, went to a weekly couple hours of a night, sort of just like class and they kind of made it seem like, oh, like birth is so magical and like everything's beautiful and perfect. And while like it can be, I think I just thought that was gonna like snap and like happen. Like
Yeah.
I did not think like, my water was gonna break at 4 in the morning and I had no idea what was going on. I did not think like I was gonna be not even a centimeter dilated when I walked into the hospital. Like there was just like multiple different factors, and I kept on saying like, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. This isn't the way it's supposed to be, and I
Mhm.
couldn't get out of that cycle of I don't want to be here. I don't like what's going on. And I was like stuck and trapped in my own mind. So I think like now, like, and like preparing for my second, I did a lot more of mindset work. And that's like something like how you were saying, like hypnosis and things like that. Like, I think like that's so beneficial in preparing for like the what could happen.
Yeah, I feel like with my first, one of the things that I did was I read a hypnobirthing book and I thought the concepts were really like it really spoke to me about like how the body is meant to give birth and how you can trust your body and like how you shouldn't be afraid of the process and did give me encouragement, but I did not like part of the class is like you have to do it certain, you're supposed to be doing like daily practice with those like fear clearings and meditation or hypnosis tracks. And I didn't do any of those. Like I'm divorced now, but my ex-husband was like kind of like scoffed at those, like, haha, why would you ever do that? It takes so much time. And it was really interesting because I had lots of like emotional reactions during the process. And with my labor, there was a moment where a nurse had said something to me that scared me, and my labor like dead stopped.
Mm.
Like I went from having like regular contractions, longer, stronger, closer together, all the things. And then there was that conversation and things like stopped in their tracks. And I look back at that moment and I'm like, one, like you shouldn't say things to women in labor that scare them. But two, like how powerful is it? Like if I had had those like mental tools to like walk myself back out of the
Mm-hmm.
fear and back into the like, okay, setback, like let's talk to the doctor, let's get more information. But instead I like brood in that fear the rest of the time because I didn't know how to calm myself or how to get the information I needed. That's the thing that I
Yeah.
would like when I look back, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's what I needed was more information and somebody to help me like work through the feelings I was feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
I have seen so many times that when clients I work with have stalls in their labor, sometimes it's like a positional thing and we need to like change positions or do movement or things. But a lot of times it really is that emotional level of like, I'm not feeling safe anymore. And I wasn't expecting to be here, so I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just as very similar to you, I had a nurse, literally, I was 2 centimeters dilated, and they had been like checking me frequently. And I was, reacting in a way of just like straight fear, and I was shaking
Mhm.
and things like that. And she said to me, if you're like this at a 2, you're never going to make it to 10.
Oh my
And I vividly
God.
remember that. And I shut down. I said, well,
Yeah.
she sees people every single day go through this. If she
Hmm.
thinks that, like you do take the people that are there and the people with experience, like very heavily, like their, words are like very much like, okay, like they've seen this, they've done this, they know. And so
Yeah.
when she had said like, "Oh, if this is how you are at 2, you're never going to make it." I believed her. And it was yeah, like if I would have had done like more work to empower myself and said like, "No, like you're wrong, like I'm going to be able to do this," then it would have been a different experience. But I was like, "Okay, she must know something I don't, and I'm just not made for this, or like my body is not going to be able to do this." And so
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
It's really crazy how we have like such a lottery system of who we get in labor because I have had some of like the most amazing nurses that I've worked with in my career. But I can also think of like very specific times where I'm like, there was something going on with that specific provider where like we had to advocate a lot because something borderline dangerous was happening or about to happen. Or I was with one mom who had a fever for 12 hours before she could get an antibiotic. And I was like, this makes no sense. Like she was like 0.1 degree beneath the threshold for an antibiotic. And so the nurse was like, oh, she doesn't meet the criteria. And I was like, she's running a fever. She's visibly ill. And that's when I started to learn like, okay, as a doula, like, what do I do here? Or as a mom who's like, you can't go get your own antibiotic. Like, someone has to prescribe that for you. I remember coming home from that experience and being like, what do I do to never be in that situation again? Who do I have to talk to? And that's when I started learning, like, oh, there's times where you just have to say, like, I want my provider at my bedside. And it doesn't matter if they're on call. It doesn't matter if they're in the building. It doesn't matter if it's like you're in labor and it's your right to ask for your provider to be at your bedside. And I feel like sometimes having somebody somebody that you've kind of grown with through the process can really speak to those fears in a way that whoever's on call, sometimes they can, but sometimes they just can't.
Yeah. And I think that's what's great about having a doula and, like even like I love like being a doula because you can be there and you are that like one solid person that's consistent for them. And
Hmm.
I think just having that consistency and like knowing that there is somebody directly for you and like there for you makes so much of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially sometimes, like, I don't know if you see this in your hospitals, but our hospitals typically, some of them, the midwives and doctors are on 24-hour schedules, but most of the hospitals, nurse and doctors are all 12-hour schedules. So if you're in labor for 20 hours or you're doing an induction and it's going over many days, it's crazy. Sometimes you'll get a completely new plan and you're suddenly in a completely new place, and your perspective or how close to the goal or how likely the goal is seems to change when as soon as you get a new care team. And I don't know, it's nice to get like a fact check or a little bit of like you said, consistency to just kind of communicate. I don't know. I feel like so much of the labor process is communication. And when it comes to like how do we manage those fears?
Yeah. As far as communication, like what do you feel is the best, I guess, like tool or like way to increase your ability to communicate when you're laboring or even like with your provider beforehand?
Yeah, yeah. I think that it really depends on like if you have an epidural and you're fully present, you can ask a lot of questions. If you are laboring naturally, your team has to kind of be really prepared to ask all the questions. And so I think it's really important to have a written birth plan, and not just one that you like wrote and bring with you, but bring it to your prenatals and talk to your provider about it and get them on board. I know like one of the things I do with my clients that are like sexual abuse survivors and we're worried about cervical checks, or we're wanting to skip a certain number of cervical checks or delay them until a certain point. Those types of things we can usually get the providers on board with, but we can't always get the nurse and triage on board with it unless it's like written into their file. And so I always think that like the time that you're able to negotiate for yourself and communicate what you want as an individual is actually before you're in labor. So I always try to walk my clients through like, these are all your choices. These are the things you might have to make. And if there's any that there might be disagreement on or different approaches to, I always have the care providers like note it in their file so that if we're in triage and they're like, but we always do checks when you come in. And they're like, yeah, but not me. Like this is my body. This is my birth. You can see my contraction pattern is frequent and strong. Like we're going to delay that until later. That if it's written down, then it's just a matter of saying like, oh, her doctor already agreed. Or same with Pitocin. I think it's really important to have a conversation about like, well, when would Pitocin be turned down or turned off, and get that written down in your chart, because sometimes when I'm with a client and it's going up and up and up and up, and their reaction to it is getting like harder and harder and harder. Like if they're visibly looking like they're in transition and you do a check and you find out you're at 1 centimeter, you can't go through labor like that, right? So what needs to happen? You need to find like a better balance with that medication. And you have the right to make that choice when you're not in that place of suffering. But again, it comes down to like who's on call that day or who's at the hospital that day, how open they are to making those adjustments. So I find that like having things noted in your chart is really, really helpful. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think like exactly to that point. Like if you get comfortable, asking the questions in your prenatal appointments, if you get comfortable kind of like, speaking, your point and wanting to have things a certain way, and then like, yeah, giving your birth plan to your provider before you are actually there, it makes so much of a difference. And it is kind of one of those things like, like I've heard sometimes even like having the provider like sign a copy of the birth plan so
Mm-hmm.
that it's literally like right there, like this provider signed off on my birth plan. We talked about it, like not even, here's my birth plan, like, okay. And then like maybe they flip through it and say, oh, all looks good. Like really
Mm-hmm.
kind of dig in and say, like, what parts of that look good? Like, how does it, like, getting in more detail, even to your point, like you said, like, at what point are we turning down the Pitocin? How often are we giving Pitocin? Like little things like that. And I think it shows that, you're educated in the topics and that you want to be actively involved in the process. And I think that really kind of changes the environment around like the whole process.
Yeah. And I remember like one of the things that was really crucial to me, the difference between my two labors was when I was in labor with Zoe. So the first time, I didn't feel like I was an expert enough to enter the arena of the conversation. And I didn't have the language or the tools to go into the conversation. And so the act of putting together a birth plan, of learning what your choices are, it gives you so much vocabulary. And then you just have the emotional side of like, okay, I'm with an expert, but this is my body and my baby, and it's my experience. So I'm also an expert. And I think sometimes it takes a little while, even as a doula. I think I probably attended like 50 plus births before I really felt like, okay, when I'm here with somebody that's gone through medical school and has been here for a decade, like my voice matters and is important. And it's important for me to enter this discussion because I didn't realize, like, when I was pregnant and even as a new doula, I really thought that have always been a very trusting person. And one thing I've like really had to learn is that you can work with a provider that really, really cares about you and really cares about their patients. But the fact is that they have other patients. Hospitals get busy. They have sometimes not enough attention to go around or resources. And so sometimes, like when you're having this lack of communication, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with that they've been working 20 hours and they're tired and they're exhausted and they care about you, but their brain's like in a state of fog, right? And so,
Mhm.
how important in those cases is it for us to be able to say, like, wait, I want your attention. I want to work through this. I need your help. I need to get information because I need to come back to feeling safe. And I can't do that until I have enough information. And I need your encouragement as well. And sometimes we have to say that to our providers, like, can you give me a bit of encouragement as well? And I think usually sometimes they like snap out of this like very, very like, I'm thinking about everything that could possibly go wrong and making sure we have a plan for that. And when I'm communicating as if all these very low risk things are the most likely things. And now I need to backtrack and say, but where are we now? Like those are possibilities that I'm planning for, but it's not what I expect for you, which is why we're not treating for you for those now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What are some other things that you feel really help create a more empowered birthing experience?
Oh, I think a lot of it comes down to growth and self discovery. I think for a lot of women, it's the first time in our life where we've had to make such important choices for ourselves and where we differ from our family, from our friends, from, if you think about all the different people you interact with, everyone comes with a different like set of philosophies, point of view. And it really is a discovery process to realize like, hey, I am really unique. And so let me come like I always come back to communication. But there's a power that comes into that when you start to believe that I am unique. I am worthy of the time. I am valuable. My experience matters. And I am an expert in myself. I think that so often that like we're willing to discount those or we're trying to be like people pleasing our way through labor. And that sometimes like the people pleasing can be great if we walk in and everything lines up for us and everyone's really nice and calm and taking really good care of us, which happens sometimes. And we should hope for that and expect it and receive it when it happens. But we also need to be prepared to like, hey, this is my experience. So I'm going to expect you. Like, I know you're busy, but it's also your job to be here with me. And I think sometimes as women, we're just so willing to let that go because everybody else is more important and everybody else like, oh, they're really busy. They have a lot going on. Like, I can see them running between rooms, or they look tired when they come in. And we really need to know like how important we are and how incredible it is. Like you built this human from like two tiny cells, and you've spent months getting to this point, and this is something that you'll remember the rest of your life. Like how incredible it is to like stand in that power and say that my experience truly matters.
Yeah, I think it is like a lot of the just like preparation and really having that vision and wanting to feel empowered. I think there's like a weird mix of I guess like people that really want to do this work and they see it as such a transformational experience and they see, the deeper meaning of it and the I don't like I really feel like there's like different types of people that like birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't like I really feel like it's like you either think like it's just another day or it's something that you like deeply like passionately like want to experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really, really love when I see people go through like a lot of times in my first meeting with people, people will tell me, like, I'm worried something's going to happen to me. Like it's very much about like all the things that can go wrong. And I love when we've like worked together a few months and they say, like, you know what, I realize that I'm strong enough that like there might be obstacles on my path, but there's nothing that I can't like I'm capable, I'm able to do this. And I love asking people when we do the first prenatal and we're talking through people's initial, like the birth plan for the first time. I always ask people about what they want in their birth and what obstacles they have. My favorite question to ask is always like, okay, imagine that this is your baby's like second birth date. You've been through everything. You had a healthy mom, healthy baby, and you're looking back on the experience. Like, what are you going to remember? Because I think sometimes we get so focused on the negatives that we forget, like, this is an incredible time of bonding and to feel loved and supported and that sense of accomplishment. And if we look at other incredible things, like, how did you feel on graduation day? How did you feel, if you're an athlete and you ran a marathon? Like, that wasn't easy. And there's truly not that much difference. Your uterus is just a muscle. So if you've done anything athletic ever in your life, you have a sense of, which everybody has, right? Whether we wanted to or not, you have a sense of like, okay, this is what a strong muscle feels like when it works. And like, this is how great it feels when you reach that goal. And then you can kind of like, okay, like in any of those things, it's so natural to have doubts and fears and moments where you are wondering if you're going to finish, and that's okay. That's part of the process. But like, let's focus on the fact that you are going to get to that place, right? Like that sense of accomplishment is almost like your birthright.
Yeah, I love like comparing it to, a race or a marathon, or I even say like, like a whole roller coaster in a sense, because like you don't know, like maybe with a race, like how long you're running, and like maybe that roller coaster, you do know like the length of it, or, like kind of about like where it's going to be, but you don't know like every
Yeah.
twist and turn and up and down that it's going to take and like how that's going to make you feel. And even like the waiting in line, I usually like compare that kind
Hmm.
of to like waiting for it to start. Like you don't know how long you're waiting in that line, but you're like anticipating it with so much excitement because you're like so ready to go on the roller coaster. And so like it's just like finding ways to like maybe you've never birthed the baby before, but you've done things that have like similar senses of that feeling that you want to achieve and that
Hmm.
feeling that you want to have. And so like being able to root it back to a feeling more than like the actual experience, I think can like be so beneficial.
Yeah. And when we put it in the context of, okay, my daughter just read Charlotte's Web recently, and at the end of that book, they talk about like Charlotte talks about how like this was my life's work, like the greatest thing she did in her life. And I think when we think about a child, it really is the most demanding thing that a lot of us do in our lives. And to be at the start of that journey is such a special and magnificent place. One of the things I love to do is hike. And there are sometimes where I'll go on hikes, and the only thing I do is like, I'll be in this like gorgeous place, like this incredible place. And the only thing I do is like those Instagram reels now where they like record people's feet, like people record their feet when they're walking. I'm like, that's what I do is I stare at my feet the whole time. And I'm like, one step, one step, one step. And I think it's so important to like have that moment where we stop and we are like present and
Mhm.
we like look around us and appreciate like, when we're hiking, we can be tired and we can be hungry and it can be hard and it can be hot and you can be uncomfortable. You can have all of those negatives and still be in an incredible place emotionally and physically and have that joy and excitement. They're not like mutually exclusive, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that it's important to recognize like labor is beautiful and you are in this really magical place. And there might be some things that are hard and it might be a lot of work to get a tiny little human out of your body, and that's okay. And you're also going to like be okay. And you have people around you that want to help you stay in that place and care for you through it. And
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I really like that. And that reminds me, like our wedding day, I know that we made like a very intentional choice to like stop in different moments and really just like take a look around and like take in the moment, like almost take like a mental picture of like what was going on. And I still like to this day, like remember like where we stood at certain points and really like took a second to just slow down, stop, and like take that in. And I feel like that
Mm-hmm.
concept can be used like during birth as well. And like if you start like practicing it as you're preparing and just taking those like moments of kind of just like gratitude or appreciation and like looking around at like wherever you are and then like be in that practice of doing it, that like when you're in labor like you can really just like either have your doula or have like your partner or somebody say like, hey, let's take a moment of appreciation or like let's take a moment of gratitude to get you like out of that headspace and just sort of like
Yeah.
look around for a moment, because sometimes that's really like all you need is to just like disconnect for a second, like ground yourself and then be like, okay, I can jump back into this.
And it's amazing how much the body responds to that. I know, like, when you think about, like, okay, what's driving labor? It's your oxytocin and it's your endorphins and it's your body making the oxytocin receptors as well so that you can use that. And also, like, the uterus has like different layers of muscle fibers, and one helps dilate. And there's actually a second set of fibers that, when you are scared or when you're feeling fear, can activate as well, that can stop labor, which is like an incredible protective mechanism, like, so we can get to a place that's safe. But where fear is so common and the experience of negative emotion has just become almost like a rite of passage in birth, we really have to like be conscious about finding ways out of the fear cycle. And in doing that, we're like actually unlocking the mechanisms in our body for labor to progress.
Yeah. What would be one final kind of like words of wisdom or like words of encouragement or piece of advice that you would want to leave someone with that is in this stage of life?
I would just say that it can be really daunting to be pregnant and to think of everything that's ahead, but it all goes so quickly, and we're meant to have joy through all of it. So, it's not an expectation to have joy, but start like asking the questions like, what would it take to have a good experience? What would it take to feel closer to my family? What would it take to feel supported? And when you start kind of getting answers to those questions, all the other pieces are going to fall into place. And it will be so easy to stand up for yourself, so easy to ask for the help you need, and so easy to kind of like move from the pregnancy to the birth to the immediate postpartum to your life with this amazing little human that you created. So there's no challenge that is so big. It's usually like when you think about it all together, or when you don't have enough information, or when you don't have support around a step where it feels like contextually like too much. But if you take it one step at a time, there's so much opportunity for good experiences, like to just transform your life and for life to become so much better, even if it's becoming a little bit more, more responsibility. And and more to do. Like it's really, truly, truly an amazing thing.
Yeah, I obviously 100% agree. And I feel like it can be like such an like beautiful experience if like we allow ourselves to have that moment and to have that joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where can we find you? Where can we get in contact with you? Where do you hang out on social media? Tell us all the details.
Yeah, my website is called shebirthsbravely.com. I have a fun quiz on there that's what does your birth plan say about your personality? And it's a really great tool to start to think about like what really does make me unique. I know a lot of us have like, we don't feel unique until we start like realizing, looking for it. I also have a childbirth class that's available online and on demand. shebirthsbravely.com/learn. Everybody that goes through that course gets 2 1-hour Zoom sessions with either me or another certified doula to talk through your birth plan in the first one. And then the second one is usually like you go talk to your doctor and they give you a perspective. And now you have like a new set of emotions and feelings. And we then can help you with those, whether it's like, okay, let's adjust the birth plan to meet these needs we weren't aware of, or let's develop some self-advocacy skills and get you practiced in speaking up for yourself. I love, 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 love helping people create a birth that they love. And to me, that doesn't necessarily like I know like I loved my natural birth, but a lot of my clients choose epidurals and that's okay too. You don't have to choose like one plan to have a great birth. It's about creating a plan that reflects you and getting the skills and tools to make that one possible.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, sharing your story and sharing your experience and really, what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a privilege. And to all you moms out there, like you are strong, you are capable, you've got this.
Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a friend, message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.